Yeah, let us try to understand the develop budget process very quickly. So under develop budget, we have basically three steps. The first one is plan cost management, and then estimate cost and determine the budget. So under plan cost management, the first thing we do is developing the cost management plan. So it will be much easier to if you understand the contents of the cost management plan, then it explains by itself. A typical cost management plan contains the units of measure to be used. For example, in a knowledge industry or especially IT, the cost is synonymous with the effort of manpower. So sometimes we measure manpower or man hours in most of the IT projects and then translate that into monetary terms. Whereas in construction project, everything is measured in money, or sometimes it can be in square feet. So at the time of planning for cost management, we have to decide on the units of measure for planning and accounting the costs. And we have to decide on the level of precision required. Basically, we are talking about the rounding off. The cumulative impact of these definitions can be very high on the project. And the level of accuracy. Very often the budgeting, the accuracy of the budgeting starts at a ballpark level when we have just the idea. So ballpark is a kind of a very rough estimate, whereas the accuracy level is very, very low. And from the ballpark we get into budgetary estimates and from there we get into definitive estimates. So we have to decide on the level of accuracy of the estimates, what type of estimates to be used at what phase of the project. So these things must be decided up front. Then the organizational procedures to be followed for cost management. So that also must be referenced from the cost management plan. And sometimes we should decide on the control thresholds. For example, some of the project managers can be very high risk takers, whereas some others can be very low risk takers. The very high risk taker manager can sit on risks without escalating them, and because of that projects can get delayed. So that is not highly recommended. Whereas low risk takers will keep on escalating things very quickly to the next level. So that is also not that desirable. So we have to decide the control thresholds, like when the schedule slippage is more than 10% escalate, or when the cost overrun is more than 15% escalate, or you try to manage within yourself. So those kind of things must be decided upfront. Then the rules of performance measurement. This connects back to the earned value management. So how do we really measure the performance? Very often we go by the percentage completion. If there is a quantity survey team, they'll measure the progress and report in percentage complete. Sometimes we follow a 0-100 rule. That means a task is considered as completed only when it is 100% complete. Or it can be a 50-50 rule, means okay, we can take 50% credit as and when we start the task, and the remaining 50% will happen only when we complete it. And we have to decide on the reporting formats as well, maybe in the form of S-curve or red, yellow, green reports or pie charts. So those reporting formats of the plan versus actual of cost, those things, so these things must be decided as part of developing the cost management plan. Then we get into developing the budget, and here the key thing is estimate the cost, And here are the tools and techniques for estimation. One is an analogous estimation. It is about comparing and taking. Now, if I've done a similar project or a similar activity in the past, always I can base the estimate on that past similar activities estimate or the actuals. So we call it as analogous. Analogous estimation is all about comparing with a similar activity performed in the past and then taking those numbers for estimating the current instance. Then parametric estimation. Now let us say if we have done that task multiple times in the past, we can always take an average. Sorry. So that is parametric. A typical example of this can be cost per square feet, cost per defect, LOC per hour, so this kind of thing. Then bottom-up estimation. Initially, when the scope is at a very high level, we always do top-down estimation. So we arrive at the project level estimation and then distribute it to the lower level work packages. But once we have sufficient data, there is a time when we do bottom-up estimation. So we start with top-down estimation, and once we have enough details at the granular level, we try bottom-up estimation. Then 3-point estimate. For every task or every work package, we can always come out with 3 estimates. That is the optimistic, pessimistic, and the most likely. And we have 2 formulae here. That is, first one is optimistic plus most likely plus pessimistic divided by the 3. That is one way to arrive at the single point estimate. And another formula is optimistic plus 4 into most likely plus pessimistic by 6. So here we are giving more weightage for the 4 into most likely, we are giving more weightage. So the numerator has 6 elements, so we are dividing by 6. The first one is straightforward, optimistic plus most likely plus pessimistic by 3. The second one is optimistic plus 4 into most likely plus pessimistic by 6. Then reserve analysis. At the time of budgeting, we should estimate the amount of buffer required. So if that task actually takes, let's say, $100, if a 10% buffer means we'll be putting $110. Cost of quality it has 2 components, that is the price of conformance and the price of non-conformance. The price of conformance part comprises of all the tasks we are doing to prevent problems from happening. That comes under price of conformance. Whereas price of non-conformance is all the rework and defect fixing, customer complaint handling, reconstruction. So all those things comes under price of non-conformance. So these things also matters because even the price of conformance has a cost associated with it. Price of non-conformance also has a cost associated with it. So these things should be factored in while estimating the costs. And once we have the cost for every task, and every task has a start date and end date, then we arrive at a budget and the tool used for that is the cost aggregation. So a budget is nothing but the total cost of the project spread across a timeline. Like January, this much money you can spend, February this much, March this much, April this much. And this bifurcation is arrived at by adding up or by aggregating the costs of individual tasks based on their start dates and end dates. And we arrive at a budget. Once the budget is finalized, that is baselined, that means any changes to the budget, we should follow a change management procedure. Let us summarize. So we are in develop budget, and it comprises of three major activities: plan cost management, and estimate costs, and determine budget. So for plan cost management, we saw the typical contents of a cost management plan, and estimate cost, we saw the different tools and techniques like analogous, parametric, bottom-up, 3-point, reserve analysis, and cost of quality. And determine budget, the tool is cost aggregation. And thus we arrive at the developed budget. Now if you go through the remaining part of this document, things will become clearer to you. Thank you very much.